Welcome to the sovereign system, the only place where we don't just analyze the system, we architect a way out. Are you tired of being told you're a component, a mere cog in a machine you don't understand? We reject the idea that your only goal is to survive the chaos. Our purpose is to become sovereign, that is, fully decoupled, resilient, and in command of your own life. Each week, we use a powerful 360-degree framework combining Terence McKenna's novelty theory, occult history, material sciences, and the intentional change model to cut through the noise and reveal the forces shaping your reality. I'm Dave, one of your hosts. While I often dive deep into galaxy brain complex systems, my co-host John ensures I stay grounded and focused on practical, real-world steps.
That's right, Dave. My job is to be the street level translator. I make sure that everything we discuss, from the massive novelty spikes to the four quadrants of reality, is immediately actionable in your day to day life. We're here to build the bridge between the grand geopolitical chess game and the health of your mind, body, and bank account.
Not only bank account, but also your soul. But let's dive in. This is the sovereign system. On this episode, we are pulling the thread that connects everything. We're using Nessim Nicholas's Taleb's antifragile to reveal that every tool we've built on this show, from Brown to Jocko to Poland to Voss, is a component of the same architecture, a system that doesn't just survive chaos, it feeds on it. It gets stronger from it. And we're going to show you why the global power structure is the exact opposite, a fragile house of cards that is consuming its own builders to stay standing. Coming up on this episode, our novelty spike, the missing scientists. As of this week, over 20 researchers connected to nuclear, aerospace, UAP, and advanced material programs have died or disappeared across 2 countries. The FBI is leading a multi-agency investigation. The House Oversight Committee is demanding answers. The White House is involved. And the pattern, if it is a pattern, stretches from MIT and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory to China's National University of Defense Technology. This is the most disturbing convergence of whistleblower testimony, classified research, and unexplained death we've ever covered. And Taleb's framework explains exactly why it's happening. Then the deep dive, the 4 quadrants of fragility, will show you how Taleb's 3 categories, fragile, robust, and anti-fragile, map to the identity cage, the system, and the sovereign path. The sovereign breakthrough, the anti-fragile audit, a protocol for stress testing every area of your life to find out what's fragile, what's robust, and what's anti-fragile. This is the unified framework. And your sovereign win, the stressor menu, a 7-day practice of deliberately introducing controlled stress into your routine to build anti-fragility into your body, mind, and relationships.
20 dead or missing scientists, the FBI investigating, possibly aliens, and a framework that says chaos is actually a gift? All right, I need a coffee, I need a whiteboard, and possibly a panic room. Let's recap last week, Dave.
All right, cool, John. Quick recap. Last week we deployed Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference as the outward-facing application of everything we've built. Tactical empathy, mirroring, labeling, calibrated questions. We ran the collapsing Iran-US ceasefire through Voss's framework and showed how both sides are violating every negotiation principle in the book.
We also introduced the Tactical Empathy Stack, 7 steps that combine Poland's narrator awareness, Brown's vulnerability, Jocko's ownership, and Voss's empathy tools into one conversational sequence. And we open the NHI door wider by asking, who's the real decision maker at the geopolitical table? Because Voss says the most dangerous negotiation is the one where you don't know who you're actually negotiating with.
The sovereign win was the negotiation journal, tracking your conversations, identifying the other person's narrator, and practicing mirror, label, calibrate in real time.
And today, we're going to blow the roof off the entire building because last week we asked who's really at the table. This week, we're asking what happens to the people who find out. Spoiler, nothing good. Let's get into it. The novelty spike, the black swan harvest.
Architects, I need you to sit down for this one. This week's novelty spike is the most unsettling thing we've ever covered on this show, and I want to be very clear. We are going to present documented facts, named individuals, and official statements. We're going to apply Taleb's framework analytically, and we're going to let you draw your own conclusions.
Translation: Dave is about to scare the living daylights out of you and probably me, but responsibly.
Yeah. So, over the last 3 years, a disturbing number of scientists connected to some of the most sensitive research programs in the world have died or disappeared. Let me walk through the documented cases. In the United States, Michael David Hicks, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, 25 years, specialized in comets and asteroids, died July 2023. Cause of death was not publicly disclosed at the time, later determined to be cardiovascular disease. Amy Eskridge, co-founder of the Institute of Exotic Science, died June of 2022, ruled a suicide, though her family has raised questions. What's actually interesting about this one is that she came out and said multiple times that she wasn't suicidal, and there were actual signs that she was attacked by directed microwave weapons. And she documented this before her supposed suicide. Next up is Matthew James Sullivan, former Air Force intelligence officer, 39 years old, died in 2024 before he could testify in a federal whistleblower case about UFOs. Let that one sit for a second. Frank Malwald, JPL Space Research Specialist, died 2024 in Los Angeles at 61. Monica Riza, director of NASA's JPL's Material Processing Group, patented a nickel superalloy used in both space travel and weaponry, disappeared June 2025 while hiking in the Angeles Crest Highway, never found. Anthony Chavez and Melissa Casas, both Los Alamos National Laboratory employees, vanished weeks apart in 2025 under nearly identical circumstances, each leaving behind their car, keys, wallet, and phone. Stephen Garcia, government contractor at the Kansas City National Security Campus, missing since August of 2025. Jason Thomas, assistant director at Novartis, with active DoD contracts, disappeared December 2025, found dead in a Massachusetts lake 3 months later. Nuno Loureiro, professor of nuclear science at MIT, director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, shot and killed at his home in December of 2025. Carl Grillemar, Caltech astrophysicist, worked on NASA's NEOWISE mission, received NASA's Exceptional Scientific Achievement Medal, shot and killed at his home in February of 2026. And the case that ignited everything. William Neal McCasland, retired Air Force Major General, former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, missing since February 27th, 2026, left behind his phone, prescription glasses, and wearable devices. The FBI is involved. And John, just so everyone at home is aware, this is where they took the Roswell vehicles after they crashed in 47 was Wright Pratt. This is the very genesis of Immaculate Constellation, Majestic 12, and all of those under the Atomic Energy Act of 1953. It all started here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So this is huge when we talk about a former general that was probably at the foremost and forefront of the actual program, just walking off mysteriously.
Well, Dave, I need to say something before we continue. I try to be a funny guy, but this is, and that is my job here. But this is all kind of, when you really look at it, it's really, fucked up. I make the science digestible with terrible analogies and parking lot stories, but this list, like, I can't joke about this. These are real people, real families waiting by the phones that aren't ringing and hoping to get details on everybody involved that are missing. And the one detail that keeps me up at night: the two Los Alamos employees vanish weeks apart, both left behind their phones, wallets, and keys. Who leaves behind their phone? I mean, I'm not as attached as I used to be to my phone, but everybody's got their phone in their pocket. You know what I'm saying? These people left behind everything that tethers a human to modern existence and walked into the void, gone, disappeared. But okay, I'll try one joke because you look like you need to laugh a little bit, Dave, and because that's my coping mechanism as well.
Yeah.
Mick Causlin's wife, Susan, posted that maybe the best hypothesis is that the aliens beamed him up to the mothership. She was being sarcastic, but here's the thing. He literally ran the Air Force Research Lab at Wright Patterson, the base that has been rumored to house extraterrestrial debris for 70 years. When your wife's sarcastic joke is indistinguishable from a legitimate hypothesis, your life has gotten very, very weird.
Yep. Yep, absolutely, John. And you know what? It's not just the United States. This is where it goes global. Newsweek documented at least 9 Chinese scientists who have died in unexplained circumstances over the same period, all in parallel fields: military AI, hypersonic weapons, space defense, and nuclear technology. Feng Yanghong, professor at China's National University of Defense Technology, reported working on Taiwan invasion simulations, died in a car accident in Beijing at 2:35 a.m. after leaving a work meeting. He was 38. His obituary stated that he had been sacrificed while performing official duties. Unusual language for a traffic accident. Yang Xihao, 62, space early warning systems expert, died in a traffic accident in December 2024, shortly after winning a top Chinese military science award. It's kind of crazy how, if we look at this, a lot of the early warning systems that we use to detect foreign objects headed towards our planet, these scientists seem to be targeted specifically. Yang Gong Wu, a chemist, died December of 2023. No official cause of death recorded. Yang Hong and Feng Dangning, both hypersonics researchers, died after a short illness and an unexpected medical incident abroad. Yang Daibing, drone expert. Liu Donghao, data scientist. Unclear circumstances across the board. And may I remind people, listeners at home, when we hear short illnesses, I'd like to, shine a light on, potential super poisons, ricin. You probably know about it because of Breaking Bad, but that very could be a plausible way. When you hear short illnesses and you look at this, especially when it comes to anything in the IC, anything's possible.
11 in America, 9 in China, different countries, different systems, same fields: nuclear, aerospace, space defense, advanced materials, AI, same time frame, and here's the punchline that isn't funny. Nobody is claiming the other side did it. Normally, in an espionage situation, you blame the enemy. China did it. America did it. But that's not what's happening. The FBI says they're looking for connections. House Oversight Chairman Coomer says he views this as a national security threat. But nobody is pointing at a country. So who are they pointing at? Nobody? Because nobody knows, or nobody is willing to say. And that, architects, is the definition of a black swan, an event that the system has no framework to explain, the very thing Taleb wrote the book about.
And this is where Taleb's framework becomes essential, because Taleb's core argument in Antifragile is that fragile systems don't just break under stress. They actively suppress the signals that would warn them. They eliminate volatility. They remove the canaries from the coal mine. And if that's what we're seeing is a system, whether government, corporate, or otherwise, eliminating the people who carry disruptive knowledge about energy, propulsion, material science, or non-human intelligence, this is the most dangerous form of fragility imaginable, because you're not just suppressing information, you're removing the human beings who hold it.
Okay, Dave, I've just finished studying up on the Chernobyl disaster, and I'm getting chills hearing about this. One of the reasons the Soviet Union collapsed is this exact scenario: deflecting blame and covering up before the chickens escaped the coop. But let me put this in different terms. The system is a restaurant that keeps firing the health inspectors. Sure, your kitchen looks clean on paper, but the rats are still in the walls. And eventually, someone opens the wrong door. Now, I want to be fair. Snoops and CBS and several experts have said there's no established connection between these cases. Some families have pointed to pre existing conditions. The MIT shooting was apparently a revenge killing by a former classmate. Not everything is a conspiracy, but, and this is a big but, even the skeptics agree that the FBI investigation is warranted. Even the White House is calling it serious. And the sovereign question isn't, is there definitely a conspiracy? The sovereign question is, why does the system produce conditions where this many people with this type of knowledge end up dead or missing in this short of a time frame? Whether it's coordinated or chaotic, the pattern reveals the fragility of the system that produced it. And that is Talib's. Let's get into the source material. Dave, after that segment, I need something I can hold on to. Give me the Talib download. Who is this guy?
Yeah, so Nissim Nicholas Taleb is a Lebanese-American essayist, mathematical statistician, former options trader, and risk analyst. He's a professor at NYU and the author of what he calls the Inserto, a five-book philosophical essay on uncertainty. The series includes Fooled by Randomness, The Black Swan, and the one we're focusing on, Antifragile, Things that Gain from Disorder.
Wait, he invented the Black Swan concept? The same Black Swan that Voss uses in negotiations?
The very same. Voss borrowed the term directly from Taleb. A black swan is an event that is rare, has extreme impact, and is rationalized after the fact as if it were predictable. 9/11 was a black swan. The 2008 financial crisis was a black swan. And potentially what's happening with these scientists right now is a black swan unfolding in real time.
So last week we used the student's version. This week we're meeting the professor. I love this.
Yeah, the key concept in Antifragile is deceptively simple. Taleb says everything in the world falls into one of three categories. Fragile, things that break under stress, a wine glass, a rigid corporate hierarchy, a person who avoids all discomfort. Robust, things that resist stress, a rock, a stoic, philosophy, a person who can take a punch and stay standing. And then antifragile, things that get better from stress. Your immune system, evolution, a person who uses every failure, every setback, every crisis as a fuel for growth.
Hold on. So resilience, the thing every self-help book in the airport tells you to build, that's just robust. That's just staying the same after you get hit.
Exactly. And Taleb says that's mediocre. Robust is the floor, not the ceiling. The goal isn't to bounce back to the same shape. The goal is to bounce back as a better shape. The system wants rubber bands, things that snap back to the original form so they can be stretched again. Taleb says, become the thing that gets stronger every time it's stretched.
Dave, you just described the entire last four episodes in two sentences. Brene Brown said, lean into the vulnerability, and you come out braver. Jocko said, own the failure, and you come out stronger. Poland said, dissolve the rigid narrative and new pathways form. Voss said, absorb the person's emotion and you gain influence. Every single framework we've studied is describing anti fragility. They just didn't use the word. Brown's vulnerability equals controlled emotional stress that builds courage. Jocko's ownership equals absorbing blame to build leadership capacity. Poland's ego dissolution equals neurological stress that rewires the brain. Voss's tactical empathy equals absorbing the other person's chaos to build a connection. The sovereign system is the anti-fragile system. We've been building it all along. Talib just gave us the word for what it is.
And Taleb provides additional concepts that lock in the framework. He talks about skin in the game, The idea that you can't be anti-fragile without personal exposure to consequences. If you're giving advice but don't bear the risk, you're fragile. If you're making decisions and living with the results, you're anti-fragile. He introduces the concept of the barbell strategy. Instead of putting all of your resources in a medium risk positions, you combine extreme safety with extreme risk. Play it very safe in 90% of your life and very bold in 10%. The middle ground, the compromise, is where fragility lives.
Never split the difference. Voss said the same thing. Compromise is the worst outcome. The middle is where everybody loses. Taleb and Voss are basically the same guy, except one was keeping hostages alive and the other one was dodging derivatives on Wall Street. Different battlefield, same principle, the same middle is a trap. And the barbell strategy, that's what we're teaching on the show. Be disciplined in your daily practices, your audits, your journals, your meditation. That's the safe 90%. And then take bold, scary, vulnerable, ownership driven action in the moments that matter. That's the aggressive 10%. Safety plus courage, the barbell, the sovereign stack.
Yep, perfect. Let's take this into the quadrants. We'll start with our first one, quadrant one, the inner world. And I'm going to hand it back over to you, John.
All right, architects, story time. Picture two people getting dumped. Same situation, the love of their life just walked out the door. Person one, they're fragile. They collapse. They replay the relationship on loop for 6 months. They tell the story to every friend, every bartender, every unfortunate soul on a dating app who made the mistake of asking, "What are you looking for?" They build their entire identity around being the one who got hurt. The narrator loves this material. It's got a whole Netflix series, Why I'm Unlovable, a 47-part documentary. Person 2, Anti-Fragile. Same heartbreak, same tears, same pint of ice cream, cookies and cream if you were asking.
Hmm.
I'm not a monster. Both people deserve ice cream, but person 2, after the grief, starts asking different questions. Not, why did they leave me, but what was I not seeing? What patterns was I ignoring? What did this relationship reveal about what I actually needed? They use the pain as data. They come out of the breakup a more self aware, more honest, more emotionally intelligent person. Same event, person one breaks, person two upgrades. That's the difference between fragile and anti fragile. And here's the kicker, person two still cried. They didn't skip the pain. They didn't armor up. That's Brown's lesson. They didn't blame. That's Jocko's lesson. They didn't let the narrator lock them in a groove. That's Paulin's lesson. They felt everything and they extracted the upgrade. That's Taleb's. And yeah, I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm currently at the interrogating the ice cream for answer stage, but I'm asking the anti-fragile questions. Progress.
Yeah, what John is describing maps to the neuroscience. Remember the default mode network from episode 9 when the DMN runs a rigid loop? I always get hurt, relationships never work, I'm destined to be alone. That's a fragile mental architecture. One shock and the whole thing shatters into depression or numbness. An anti-fragile mental architecture uses the shock to create new neural pathways. The effect labeling from Brown's research, naming the emotion, reducing the amygdala activation by up to 50%. The ownership reframe from Jocko, shifting the locus of control from external to internal. The pattern interrupt from Poland, deliberately disrupting the groove. All these are neurological anti-fragility practices. They use the stress of the experience to build stronger, more flexible brain architecture. All right, so we're going to go into quadrant two now, the physical world. Taleb anchors the concept of anti-fragility in biology. Your body is the original anti-fragile system. Your muscles grow from being torn. That's what weight training is. Your bone density densifies under impact. Your immune system requires exposure to pathogens to develop strength. Your cardiovascular system strengthens under aerobic stress, which is also exercise, by the way. And here's the key insight. When you remove stress from a biological system, it doesn't get safer, it gets more fragile. Astronauts lose bone density in zero gravity. Bedridden patients lose muscle mass. Children raised in sterile environments develop more allergies and autoimmune disorders. The system needs stress to maintain its integrity.
This is the most counterintuitive thing we've ever covered. Also, the most obvious once you hear it. Your body needs stress. Your mind needs discomfort. Your relationships need conflict. Not unlimited, uncontrolled stress. Taleb is clear about that. He calls it hormesis, the principle that small doses of a harmful substance or stressor can be beneficial. A little poison makes you stronger, a lot kills you. So the question isn't how do I avoid stress? The question is what's the right dose of stress that makes me stronger without breaking me? And that is what every episode has been teaching. Brown said the right dose of vulnerability builds courage. Jocko said the right dose of ownership builds leadership. Poland said the right dose of ego dissolution builds cognitive flexibility. Voss said the right dose of absorbing someone else's emotion builds influence. Hormesis everywhere. The sovereign system is a hormetic protocol for your entire life. Now we're jumping to quadrant 3, the collective inner world. And now we come back to the dead scientists, because this is where Taleb's framework gets terrifying at the cultural and collective level. Taleb says fragile systems have a defining behavior. They suppress volatility, they eliminate the unpredictable, they silence the canaries, and they call the resulting silence stability. But it's not stability, it's a pressure cooker with a release valve welded shut. Now look at this list of scientists. What did they have in common? Access to knowledge that, if released, would create massive systemic disruption, advanced materials, exotic propulsion, nuclear technology, UAP-related research, consciousness studies. These are fields that, if a black swan emerges from any of them, rewrites the entire global power structure overnight.
And this is where we have to talk about the egregore of secrecy, because the pattern doesn't stay within one country's borders. In the US, 11 scientists, fields spanning from fusion, asteroids, advanced materials, UAP-related aerospace. The FBI is investigating. House Oversight Chairman Comer calls it a national security threat. Former FBI official Chris Swecker says the pattern is consistent with how several foreign powers operate. In China, 9 scientists, fields spanning from military AI, hypersonics, space defense, Feng Yangheng, working on Taiwan invasion simulators, dead at 2:35 a.m. car crash. His obituary, sacrificed while performing official duties. Zhang Ixang, space early warning systems, dead in a traffic accident right after winning China's top military science award, ages ranging from 26 to 68. And here's the question nobody's asking publicly, but everyone in the disclosure community is thinking, what if it's not China targeting US scientists or the US targeting Chinese scientists? What if both countries are experiencing the same phenomenon for the same reason? Because both countries are sitting on the same type of black swan knowledge, and the same suppression mechanism is operating in both systems.
Dave's being diplomatic. Let me be direct. Dave Grush testified under oath before Congress in 2023 that the U.S. government possesses materials and vehicles of non human origin. Lou Elizondo, former head of the Pentagon's ATIP program, has said the same. Carl Neal, a retired Army colonel, publicly stated that non human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. Now, if that's true, if even a fraction of that testimony is accurate, then the scientists who work on advanced materials, exotic propulsion, and reverse engineering programs aren't just scientists. They're the custodians of the biggest black swan in human history, and Taleb says fragile systems eliminate black swans. Matthew James Sullivan was an Air Force intelligence officer who died before he could testify in a federal whistleblower case about UFOs. Read that again. Died before testimony about UFOs. McCaisland commanded the Air Force Research Lab at Wright-Patterson, the base, the one that has been at the center of the Roswell recovery story since 1947. And he walked out of his house one day and vanished. No phone, no glasses, no trace. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm telling you what's documented. And I'm telling you that the sovereign mind doesn't accept the system's explanation when the system has a material interest in the silence. Also, if anyone from the government is listening, I don't know anything classified. I can barely operate my Bluetooth speaker. Please leave me alone. I just host this podcast.
The sovereign position is not to declare a conspiracy as fact. It's to recognize that a system which cannot explain 20 missing or dead scientists across two superpowers in the same fields during the same time frame is, by Taleb's definition, fatally fragile. It has suppressed so much information, silenced so many signals, and concentrated so much black swan knowledge in so few hands that the loss of those hands threatens the entire architecture. An anti-fragile system would distribute that knowledge widely. It would welcome disruption. It would make the black swan information public so the system could adapt. But a fragile system does the opposite. It hoards, it classifies, it compartmentalizes, and when the compartments start leaking, it eliminates the leaks. All right, let's move on to quadrant 4, the collective exterior world. At the systemic level, Taleb identifies the fundamental design flaw of modern institutions. They are optimized for efficiency, not resilience. And the efficiency is the enemy of anti-fragility. The efficient system removes redundancy, centralizes decision making, and eliminates anything that doesn't directly serve the primary function. That makes it fast and profitable in normal conditions, but it also makes it catastrophically fragile when a black swan arrives, because all the shock absorbers that have been removed in the name of optimization.
Boeing. Remember Boeing from episode 8? Optimized for efficiency, removed redundancy, self certified their own aircraft, and when the Black Swan arrived, a door falling off at 30,000 feet, the system had no shock absorber. That's fragility. Air Canada from episode 7, optimized for operational efficiency. The CEO was an effective operator, but when the Black Swan arrived, the crash, the need for human connection, the system shattered. 92-0. Fragility. The Iran ceasefire from episode 10. Optimized for leverage and posturing. But when the Black Swan arrives, a ceasefire that nobody believes in, the system can't hold, because there's no trust infrastructure, no shock absorber of genuine human connection. Fragility. And now, the global research apparatus optimized for secrecy, compartmentalization, and control. 20 scientists dead or missing, and the system has no explanation, no protocol, no response except the FBI is investigating, because the system was designed to be efficient at keeping secrets, not anti-fragile enough to survive their exposure. Architects, this is the meta lesson. Every fragile system we've studied on this show fails in exactly the same way. It optimizes for control, it suppresses disruption, it eliminates the canaries, and then, when reality arrives uninvited, it shatters. The sovereign system is the antidote. It's designed to absorb shocks, integrate disruption, and get stronger from stress. That's not just a personal development philosophy. That's a survival strategy for a world that is getting stranger and more volatile by the day.
And Taleb would say the fact that the world is getting stranger is not a problem. Strangeness is information. Black swans are data. The problem is systems that pretend strangeness doesn't exist. The anti-fragile response to a world of black swans isn't to hide from them. It's to build a life, a mind, and a community that feeds on them. All right, let's go ahead and get into our sovereign breakthrough. Architect's sovereign breakthrough this week is the anti-fragile audit, a protocol for stress testing every domain of your life.
This is the big one. Every audit we've done, the Armor audit, the Blame Ledger, the Default Mode audit, the Negotiation Journal, was training you for this. This is the final exam. Except you can't fail, because failure is literally the point. Talib would be proud.
Take a piece of paper, draw 3 columns, label them fragile, robust, anti-fragile. Now list every major domain of your life: health, finances, relationships, career, mental health, creativity, community. For each domain, ask, what happens to this area of my life when a stress arrives? Does it break? Does it stay the same? Or does it get stronger?
Let me do mine live. Career. If I lost my job tomorrow, would I shatter? Hold steady or come back better? Honestly, right now, fragile. I've got one income stream, no savings cushion worth bragging about, and my most markable skill is making scientists' research funny for strangers on the internet. If this podcast goes down, I'm performing at open mic nights, and hoping someone in the audience is hiring. Hopefully, I'm funny too. So, career goes in the fragile column, and that's not shameful. That's data. Talib says once you know what's fragile, you can apply the barbell strategy. Keep the safe base, build the savings cushion, diversify income, and take the bold swing. Pitch that book, launch that course, make that scary ask. Save base plus bold swing. That's the barbell. That's anti fragility by design.
Yeah, the anti-fragile audit reveals your single points of failure. Taleb calls them concavities, areas where additional stress makes things disproportionately worse. If your entire financial life depends on one paycheck, that's a concavity. If your entire emotional life depends on one relationship, that's a concavity. If your entire identity depends on one narrative, that's a concavity. The sovereign response is to introduce convexity, structures where additional stress creates disproportionate upside, multiple income streams, deep friendships across different contexts, and identity built on values rather than roles. These are anti-fragile architectures.
Architects, do the audit tonight. Seriously, 3 columns. Every domain, be brutal, be honest, and then look at the fragile column and ask, what's the smallest step I could take this week to move one of these toward anti fragile? That's the move. One step, one domain, one shift from this would break me to this would teach me.
All right, architects. Your final exercise. This week's sovereign win is the stressor menu, a 7-day practice of deliberate, controlled stress exposure to build anti-fragility into your daily life.
Before Dave lays this out, let me be clear. We're not telling you to jump off a bridge for personal growth. I mean, the bridge might be not that, high off the ground, Dave, but, let's not have people do that. Hormesis means small dosages, controlled dosages, the right amount of discomfort, not the I saw it on YouTube amount.
7 days, 7 stressors, one per day. Pick from the menu or create your own. Day 1, physical, cold exposure. End your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. Your body's cold shock response builds cardiovascular resilience. This is hormesis at its most literal. Day 2, social. Start a conversation with a stranger. Not a sales pitch, not networking, just a genuine human contact outside your usual circle. Break the social groove. Day 3, creative. Make something terrible on purpose. Write a bad poem, draw a bad picture, cook a bad meal. The point isn't the product. The point is divorcing your identity from the outcome. Day 4, financial. Look at the number you've been avoiding. Your savings, your debt, your spending, just look at it. The stress of confrontation is the beginning of anti-fragility. Day 5, relational. Use your tactical empathy stack from last week. Have one conversation where you mirror, label, and ask a calibrated question instead of defaulting to your usual pattern. Day 6, intellectual. Read or watch something you fundamentally disagree with. Not rage scroll, generally or genuinely engage with an opposing perspective. Seek the steel man, not the straw man. Day 7, existential. Sit with a question you've been avoiding about your purpose, your direction, your morality, your beliefs. Don't answer it, just sit with it. The discomfort of the unanswered question is the most anti-fragile exercise there is.
I'm not going to bet the artisanal pickles this time. I'm going to bet something bigger. I'm going to bet that by the end of this 7 days, you will feel more alive than you have in months, because aliveness isn't comfort. Aliveness is engagement with reality, all of reality, the beautiful parts and the uncomfortable parts. The system wants you numb, scrolling, consuming, and predictable. The sovereign system wants you awake, stressed in exactly the right doses, and anti fragile. 20 scientists are dead or missing because they knew things the system couldn't contain. Whatever you think about why that happened, the lesson is clear. Knowledge that stays locked in a fragile system is dangerous to the people who hold it. Knowledge that gets distributed, shared, discussed, integrated into a community that can absorb it, that's anti fragile. That's what this podcast is. That's what the sovereign system community is. We're distributing the knowledge, we're making it harder to suppress. We're building the anti fragile network one architect at a time. And I'll hand that off to Dave.
Yeah, no, absolutely, John. I think it's interesting. We've been building all of these episodes, and this kind of is the crescendo, right? Um, Definitely gonna re-examine our approach here, kind of moving forward. But I think we've covered a lot of great things, and I think anti fragility is the basis of what we're trying to teach here. But I'm not gonna lie, this is all pretty spooky stuff. When you look at it, and it's not, we didn't include all scientists, by the way, scientists in the United Kingdom, other parts of Europe. I mean, this is happening everywhere, and these are happening in the frontier sciences, if you will. So someone or something is definitely trying to prevent humanity as a whole from advancing. Now, whether that's humans, whether that's the interdimensionals that are, purported to be controlling our reality and stuff like that. I mean, you're looking at even like today, you have people going on, and these are like senators and Congress members basically going on television saying, "Hey, we know that this stuff's real. We've seen it. We've got reports from everywhere and everyone under the sun. This is real." So again, and John, I don't think we've ever covered this, but from kind of my background and training, I always look at this as kind of like what a magician is doing, right? A magician does creates illusions by distraction, right? He's going to show you, or they're going to show you something interesting happening center stage, while the real sleight of hand is happening, slightly off stage or slightly off center. And so I have to ask the question that if they're disclosing this, one, is it probably inevitable, obviously, right? Something's happening. Something's definitely going on behind the scenes. But then all of a sudden you look at this situation and you realize, okay, so they're clearing the board of people that could also come out and say, yeah, no, this is all real. It's just it's strange. It's very, very spooky.
Yeah, no, I'm baffled that the whole entire situation that's happening before us, and I'll be honest, there's things that I haven't experienced myself, but I am open to new experiences or anything that can happen that isn't in the norm. I'm sitting here kind of waiting for something different to happen every day, and I feel like again, just like how we go over every episode, our novelty spikes, something does happen and you have to ask yourself, am I going to tune in or am I going to tune out? And I'm telling you right now, Dave, I'm tuned in and I can't wait to see that black swan. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But let's go ahead and jump out of here. Until then, architects, do the audit, eat from the stressor menu, and remember you are not fragile. You are not merely resilient. You are anti-fragile. You were destined to gain from disorder. The system forgot that. You won't. Follow the black swans, question the silence, and never, ever let them remove your signal from the system. We'll see you next week, assuming we're all still here. That was a joke. Don't you dare look at me like that, Dave. Well, mostly a joke. We'll see you later.